My name is Lindsay Callaway. I'm a researcher at the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada's Centre for Research on Church and Faith. We recently conducted a study on small evangelical churches in Canada. We learned about the needs of small churches by asking pastors about their ministry contexts and experiences. A common refrain we heard from pastors was that it tends to be hard for them to implement change in a small church. And we noticed that there are often unarticulated and implicit hurdles specific to each congregational culture that need to be addressed before change can be implemented. We called this a congregational covenant. A congregational covenant refers to the unwritten understandings of what the church and its mission are all about. And often there are symbolic or emotional ties to this covenant, like the church building, the language that is spoken, the church name, and sometimes objects. A congregational covenant is more than nostalgia, however. Covenants are usually formed at the founding or golden age of the church, and it reflects the founding philosophy for why the church exists. It's not just we exist to preach the gospel and live as the body of Christ in the world, but it's we're doing those things in this place, at this time, in these ways. The covenant functions as the origin story for a church community, and faithfulness to that covenant can often become a litmus test for faithfulness to the gospel. This could explain why almost 2/3 of pastors we surveyed described their congregations as faithful, while denominational leaders tended to interpret small congregations as insular. But loyalty to the founding vision, the founding purpose of the church, is often seen as spiritual faithfulness to the gospel, and resistance to change in the covenant is understandably seen as a defense of the gospel. It's also important to realize that the congregational covenant is associated with ministry success. The covenant was made when things were good. A pastor may come in and conclude things must change, but the covenant keepers may believe that the golden era will return if the church becomes faithful once again to the covenant. So how can the small church pastor implement change? Well, one small church expert said, small church pastors need to earn the right to be heard. Pastors, especially new pastors, can avoid hurting their congregations or sowing distrust by operating in a way that honors the traditions and values that have shaped the congregational culture and covenant of their church. During a discussion about small church covenants and the problems that can arise when a pastor tries to make changes too soon, one pastor noted, "Small churches are family. And people don't come into your house where your family lives and just start changing the curtains." Her point was that the pastor who makes changes before becoming part of the church family behaves like a visitor in your home who tries to redecorate before they've earned that privilege. Covenants can serve as a protective mechanism, pulling aggressive change back like an elastic band. If a pastor fails to properly understand and honor a congregation's culture, the congregation can start to work against the pastor leading change. These may not be people who hold a recognized position or office of leadership, but they exercise power and influence and see themselves as keepers of the covenant on which the church was built and established. They protect the church from those who failed to recognize and honor the covenant that gives them their sense of their church. Covenantal change is, at its core, a reconsideration of a congregation's identity and mission. Several pastors we interviewed provided templates for their process of constructive covenantal change. There is an urgent need for small church pastors, both leaders who are lay and pastors, as well as denominational leaders, to talk about contextual change and what this means for identity and mission, while finding ways to genuinely honor existing and animating church covenants.